Of the millions of words that have been written about Benny Goodman, few have succeeded in categorizing him like a true original in any field. Goodman, a child prodigy who became the world's most celebrated clarinet performer, does not fit into any convenient box. Those are the words Frank Kapler used to introduce his liner notes for the Time Life series on Benny Goodman. And he continues, some things can safely be said of him. He is certainly one of the most expert practitioners in the history of this difficult and demanding instrument, a perfectionist whose technical skill has been honed by lifelong, unremitting practice. His ability to sound and shape any note the clarinet can encompass is a byword among musicians. When you first heard the sound, says trumpeter Pee Wee Irwin, as great as Jimmy Noon and Frank Tischmaker were, that was the way the instrument was supposed to sound. He has employed his skill and style with grace and wit and an astonishing creativity, never improvising a passage the same way twice, even after playing it 100 times. Sure, he has characteristic phrases and transitional devices, says pianist John Bunch, but he is as inventive a musician as there is. Hardly a concert goes by that he doesn't surprise us all with some twist or deliverance he's never done before. Benjamin David Goodman was born May 30, 1909, the 8th of the 12 children of David and Dora Goodman. His parents were Russian by virtue of the Tsar's territorial acquisitions. David came from Warsaw in Poland and Dora from Kovno in Lithuania. They met as immigrants in Baltimore and were married there in the early 1890s. A decade and 3 children later, they moved to Chicago, where David put in 12 to 14 hours a day in a clothing factory when there was work. The family moved often while Benny was growing up, and as he wrote in his 1939 autobiography, The Kingdom of Swing, I can remember a time when we lived in a basement without heat during the winter and a couple of times when there wasn't anything to eat. I don't mean much to eat, I mean anything. In 1918, the family residence was a top-floor flat in an apartment house on Francisco Avenue in the West Side Jewish ghetto. The 2 eldest Goodman boys, Louis and Morris, were in their 20s and working, so the pinch was off a little. Benny, in Shepherd Grammar School, a few grades behind brothers Freddie and Harry, was turning into a string bean of a youngster who was a better-than-fair player of shinny, the roller skate street hockey that was the neighborhood's featured sport. Benny's mother favored putting their children to work at age 14, Chicago's legal working age. Her husband, although uneducated himself, wanted his sons to have the benefits of book learning. From a neighbor whose high school sons played instruments, he got the idea that making music might be a good way for his boys to earn money while continuing their education. But how to come by instruments, an expensive luxury? The answer came one Sunday when he extended his weekly constitutional into another neighborhood and heard music coming from the Kehala Jacob Synagogue. He entered and came upon a band in full blare. Some of the chairs were filled by boys so small that their feet hardly reached the floor. He learned that the temple lent the instruments to the youngsters, who paid a nominal sum for lessons. The next Sunday he took Harry, Freddie, and Benny to the temple. As in the case of the cornet that the 13-year-old Louis Armstrong acquired in the colored waif's home in New Orleans, the first confrontation between a great jazzman and his chosen instrument often becomes the stuff of legend. Harry, the eldest and biggest of the 3 Goodmans, drew a tuba, and Freddie, number 2, got a trumpet. The littlest Goodman received the instrument with which he was to become synonymous. If I had been 20 pounds heavier and 2 inches taller, I would probably be blowing a horn now instead of a clarinet, Benny once wrote. When the synagogue ran out of money for its band, the Goodman boys turned to Hull House, the pioneer social settlement founded 30 years earlier by Jane Addams, which also had a boys' band. With lessons there, plus practice at home, Benny became fairly proficient. His eldest brother, Louis, had brought home a record by Ted Lewis, then America's most popular clarinetist, which he played so often that the 12-year-old Benny could soon duplicate the Lewis performance. Benny's brother talked the manager of the nearby Central Park Theater into letting the youngster put on his act. Benny, in knee pants and a Buster Brown collar and weighing 75 pounds, including the clarinet, did his Ted Lewis impersonation from the pit conductor's platform, lest the management fall afoul of the law by letting a 12-year-old perform on stage. He got no pay, but a few weeks later the same manager sent for him when a vaudeville act folded. Benny, yanked from a shinny game, played his first professional engagement for $5. Soon after, feeling he had outgrown the instruction available at Hull House, Benny found his way to the North Side studio of Franz Schopp, a small, white-haired perfectionist who poured his passionate love of the clarinet and his towering respect for the discipline of music into students of any color or creed who were willing to match his zeal. Among his disciples were two of the most famous jazz clarinetists, Jimmy Noon and Buster Bailey. Sometimes, Benny recalled, he and Buster played duets, while Professor Shep stood over us, counting the time and watching that we played correctly. Benny and his brothers played for picnics on summer Sunday afternoons and in parades at $5 a parade, and would, with others, peel off into Dixieland combinations, cornet, trombone, clarinet, tuba, and drums, and, as Benny would say, play free. That's what he called jazz soloing. In his last year of elementary school, Benny spent more time practicing than in study or at play. Entering Harrison High, Benny met a new bunch of juvenile instrumentalists, among them Richie McPartland, who played banjo, and his brother Jimmy, a cornetist. With the McPartlands, he and some other sidemen played for dances at nearby Austin High, which had some budding jazz musicians of its own. Bud Freeman, Frankie Teschmaker, who at that time played violin and was also studying alto sax, along with the McPartlands, plus a talkative youngster from a suburban high school, Oak Park, who played drums as precociously as he discoursed on life and art. His name was Dave Tuff. Shortly after the Christmas break in 1922, Benny was invited to play some dates with Charlie Podolsky, an entrepreneur who inexplicably was known as Murph. To play with Murph, clarinetist Goodman had to become a union member. In the middle of his freshman year in high school, and still short of his 14th birthday, he got his card in the American Musicians Union using an older brother's birth certificate. Murph made Benny wear long pants, at least on the job. It was at this point that Benny dropped out of school entirely. The story of how Benny Goodman first encountered Bix Beiderbecke has been told 100 times. Bandleader Bill Grimm asked Benny to fill in for a clarinetist one August day on an excursion boat that ran daily across Lake Michigan between Chicago and Michigan City and a couple of other East Shore towns. Benny, in his short pants, was setting up on the boat's bandstand when another musician, a skinny youth of 20, came up and told him to keep his hands off the instruments. Other sidemen cleared up the misunderstanding and introduced Benny to cornetist Bix Beiderbecke. Although he had heard the name mentioned favorably by a few jazzmen, it meant nothing special to Benny, but the boat was not long underway before he recognized a precocious talent, and so, for his part, did Beiderbecke. Goodman embarked on hours of practice. He could hit a clear and round high C, plus a few half tones above it. and he was mastering the chalumeau, the lower register of the instrument, playing the deep tones either with classical clarity or dirtied up in the best tradition of good Chicago players. He continued to learn the chords progressions, and the variations that were harmonically valid. Benny was now earning $48 for a 4-night week at a West Side dance hall called Guyon's. Musicians were beginning to hear about Benny and to seek him out. One summer night in 1925, he was approached by a saxophonist named Gil Rodin, who had been playing in California with the orchestra of Ben Pollock, an ex-Rhythm Kings drummer. Rodin said Pollock had asked him to look up the Kid in Short Pants and see if he wanted to join the band on the West Coast when there was an opening. When the chance came about the beginning of August, the 16-year-old Goodman showed up promptly at the Venice Ballroom near Los Angeles, knee pants and all. This was the beginning of a long and fruitful association between the two Bennys, Goodman and Pollock. This marked the emergence of Benny Goodman as a jazz musician of major stature. During the Pollock era, Benny gained musical maturity long before he attained legal majority. Benny cut his first record while with Pollock, and that was in September of 1926, but the recording was not released. 3 months later, on December the 9th, 1926, Benny was first heard on a record that was released. It was probably made while the Pollock band was in the Venetian room of the Southmore Hotel in Chicago. Harry Greenberg, Al Harris, and Earl Baker on trumpets, Glenn Miller, trombone, Gil Rodin on alto, and Fudd Livingston on tenor sax, Victor Young and Al Beller on violin, Vic Bradis on piano, Lou Kessler banjo, Harry Goodman on tuba, Ben Pollock drums, and of course Benny Goodman clarinet. Here is a Victor 78 RPM, Deed I Do, Benny Goodman's first commercially released recording. Contrary to some discographies, the following two recordings were made in Chicago in February of 1927. They are a feature for Benny Goodman while he was 18 years old. Mel Stitzel is on piano and Bob Councilman on drums. That's aplenty. Correction on the age of Goodman. He still had 4 months before he became 18 years old when that recording was made. At that same session, he recorded an original composition in Clarinet Titus. These two recordings were on the Mellotone label. That summer of 1927, the Pollock Band took off for California and stayed there until the fall. It then returned to Chicago and the Black Hawk restaurant with new personnel: Jimmy McPartlin on cornet, Frank Quattel on trumpet, Glenn Miller trombone, Gil Roden alto, Larry Binion on tenor sax, Vic Bradis piano, Dick Morgan on banjo, Harry Goodman tuba, Ben Pollock drums, and Benny Goodman clarinet. Here is Waiting for Katie. He had joined Pollock in Los Angeles 28 months earlier at the age of 16, replacing saxophonist Ted Mack, who later won fame as radio and television host on the Amateur Hour. Benny jumps right out of the band's introduction into a first chorus solo. Listening to the record half a century later, Benny remarked, "There's a lot of vitality here, isn't there?" There is indeed. After an uninspired vocal by the trio of Pollock, Dick Morgan, and Glenn Miller, the ensemble follows with the verse. Then Benny switches to cornet for the second chorus to join Jimmy McPartlin and Frank Quattel for some brass trio 4-bar exchanges with Miller's trombone. This is December the 7th, 1927, recorded in Chicago for Victor.
Our appointment was for 7. It's 8:15. If he's not here by 11, then I'll simply have to wait. All my new shoes hurt and my collar tight, but I'll stand all right and away be waiting for my Katie dear.
On the reverse of that RCA Victor 78 RPM is Memphis Blues, and in addition to Benny's clarinet solo, you will hear Jimmy McPartland's cornet. This is December the 7th, 1927 in Chicago. Benny next recorded for Vocalion using as sidemen his cohorts from the Pollock Band. Jimmy McPartland on cornet, Glenn Miller on trombone, Victor Bradis piano, Dick Morgan guitar, brother Harry Goodman on tuba, and Bob Councilman on drums and vibes. Here is A Jazz Holiday. That was the first recording Benny Goodman made as leader, and the label read Benny Goodman's Boys with Jim and Glenn, referring, of course, to Jimmy McPartlin and Glenn Miller. At that same recording date, January 23, 1928, they did Wolverine Blues, a Jelly Roll Morton composition. You heard that short exclamation at the end of that. Nobody seems to remember who did it or why it was included in the recording. It almost sounded like they were going to go on to "Oh, play that thing." There it is, just the way it was done back in January of 1928. And now it is 6 months later. Benny had decided to leave the Pollock Band in December of 1927 and went with Isham Jones for a few months. In early 1928, Gil Rodin again induced Benny to join Pollock. With BG back in the fold, the Pollock Orchestra took its first crack at the Big Apple, Broadway, and New York City. The band opened March 6 at the Little Club, 44th Street off Broadway. Here, Benny and the others met and jammed with the cream of the jazz musicians of the period who had gravitated to New York. Here, too, Benny began to get calls from resident leaders and contractors who had become impressed with his all-around proficiency, apart from his jazz talents. So it was that Benny's first New York record date was not for Pollock, but for Nat Skelkrit, under the label of the All-Star Orchestra. Jimmy McPartlin, cornet, Ray Ludwig, Fuzzy Farrar on trumpets, Glenn Miller, Tommy Dorsey on trombones, Fudd Livingston, tenor sax, Max Farley, plus one other saxes, Cress on banjo, Joe Tarto on tuba, Chauncey Morehouse, drums. Here is Oh Baby with a vocal by Scrappy Lambert. This is March 21, 1928. Here's Benny with Ben Pollock's initial recording in New York, April 26, 1928, Singapore Sorrows.
Singapore sorrows stealing around at night. Singapore sorrows filling me so with pride. Out through the gloom they go round to your room, and while you sleep they just keep right on crooning. Nothing but sadness, why did you go astray? You will find gladness if you just stay away. That's what I heard in that old Chinatown. Singapore sorrows following you around.
On June 4th, 1928, Benny Goodman's Boys recorded, and Benny was the whole show playing both clarinet and cornet. Here is Jungle Blues. Next on that Brunswick recording session, June 4, 1928, Benny Goodman's boys recorded a thing called Room 1411. It was originally titled Goin' to Town. It was renamed to commemorate Room 1411 of the Whitby Hotel in New York, where the Pollock bandsmen at Liberty and Broke had moved in en masse on Benny Goodman. Versatility of the 19-year-old Benny Goodman shows in that recording. You heard him on clarinet, on alto sax, on baritone sax, and cornet. A really fantastic demonstration of his talent with musical instruments. And there is more of this talent on the reverse of this cassette. From that June 4th, 1928 session is Blue. Glenn Miller's arrangement has trombone, cornet, and tenor sax voiced close under Benny's first chorus baritone lead. The third chorus is a solo by Benny on alto sax, following Jimmy McPartland's chorus, and it shows how profoundly Bix had influenced some of the young white musicians of the day. Benny could still play alto when I was in the band, said trumpeter Harry James, who joined Goodman 10 years later. I remember on one record date when he didn't like the way Jaime Schutzer was playing lead, he took over and played the lead sax the whole side. So here is Jimmy McPartland, Glenn Miller, Bud Livingston on tenor sax, Vic Bradis on piano, Dick Morgan guitar, Harry Goodman tuba, Ben Pollock drums. For Brunswick on June 4, 1928, Benny Goodman, clarinet, baritone, and alto. this recording session was scheduled to end at this juncture. Benny's group got to kidding around, preparatory to leaving, playing a cod Dixie, as Jimmy McPartland termed it, version of St. Louis Blues, with Tommy Dorsey in the studio for a different session, joining in the fun. To their amazement, the contractor screamed, "That's great, it's just what I want, you'll have to record it." So using the chords of St. Louis Blues, the Goodman group cut one more side, and they entitled it Shirt Tail Stomp. Well, enough of this fooling around. Let's get serious. Here on October the 15th, 1928, Benny Goodman is with Ben Pollock and his Central Park Orchestra. And for the first time, we have Jack Teagarden in the Pollock Band, Jimmy McPartland on trumpet with Al Harris, Gil Roden, and Larry Binion on saxes, two violinists and a cellist, Vic Bradis on piano, Dick Morgan banjo, Harry Goodman tuba, and Ben Pollock on drums. Here is Bye Bye for Baby, or Baby Will Bye Bye You, with a vocal by Bell Mann. hard-selling impresario who took over the management of Duke Ellington's orchestra while it was at the Cotton Club in New York in 1926, and for the next 13 years steered Ellington toward ever greater financial rewards for both of them. Never one to miss an opportunity, Mills got his name on a number of compositions as Ellington's co-composer, and he energetically organized a number of record sections of his own using groups usually built around Pollock musicians. Mills was a former song plugger, and on several records he managed to further increase his share of the take by doing the vocal. In November of 1928, under the label of Mills Musical Clowns for the Perfect label, he got Benny Goodman, clarinet, Jimmy McPartland on cornet, Jack Teagarden on trombone, Gil Rodin, alto, Larry Binion, tenor sax, Vic Bradis on piano, Dick Morgan, banjo, Harry Goodman, bass, and Ben Pollock on drums. Here is same date of November 23, 1928, Benny Goodman recorded with Jimmy McPartland and Jack Teagarden under the Mills Musical Clowns label for Perfect Records. Bugle call Jack Teagarden is the vocalizer.
Oh, time to get up and get going.
On December the 3rd, 1928, Ben was back recording with the Ben Pollock Band for Victor. Jimmy McPartland and Al Harris on trumpet, Jack Teague on trombone, Gil Roden and Larry Binion saxes, Ed Bergman and Al Beller on violins, plus a cellist, Dick Braden on piano, Dick Morgan, banjo, Harry Goodman, tuba, and Ben Pollock drums. And of course, Benny Goodman on the clarinet. Here is Sentimental Baby with a vocal by Gene Austin.
Sentimental baby, I see us here. Sentimental baby, please tell me, dear, what makes you always feel so blue? What makes you act the way you do? Sentimental baby, cuddle up near. There's something I want you to hear. You see the sun come shining through. Sentimental baby, oh.
Pollock felt he wasn't recognized as the band's leader while he was behind the drums, and so he wanted to be out in front of the band and got Ray Baduch to replace him. Benny Goodman and the Pollock Band recorded next on December the 24th, 1928. Here is Futuristic Rhythm with a vocal by Ben Pollock. 3 days later, on December 27, 1928, Benny made that same tune, recorded for perfect 78 RPM, with one of those Irving Mills groups from the Pollock Band, Jimmy McPartland on cornet, Jack Teague on trombone, Gil Roden alto, Larry Binion tenor, Vic Bradis on piano, Dick Morgan banjo, Harry Goodman tuba, and Ray Baduch on drums. It was just a smaller version of the Pollock 13-piece band. So here again is Futuristic Rhythm, under the label of Mills Musical Clowns. There is a vocal by Mildred Roselle.
3
And from that same December 27, 1928 recording session, here is Out Where the Blues Begin with Mildred Roselle again on the vocal. Benny has an alto solo on this one. Mindful of the success of the very corny shirt tail stomp which you heard, the record contractors wanted more, so the Mills Musical Clowns on this December the 27, 1928 cut a thing called Railroad Man.
boom, 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 boom. It's their feeling careful. They're fizzing, they're selling, they're feeding, boom, boom, they're whizzing. They're moving, they're fizzing, they're doing.
A couple of weeks later, on January the 8th, 1929, Benny again recorded futuristic rhythm, this time with a group called Jimmy McHugh's Bostonians, which was no more than just another form of the Pollock Band, with Jimmy McPartland on cornet, Al Harris on trumpet, Jack Teagarden trombone, Gil Roden alto, Larry Binion tenor sax, Vic Bradis piano, Dick Morgan banjo, Harry Goodman tuba, and Ray Baduke on drums. Incidentally, it was Dick Morgan who took that funny little vocal on the last number. On this one, the vocalist is listed as Marvin Young, but it really is Irving Kaufman.
Futuristic rhythm, never on the beat. Any new drum in my eardrum blows me off my feet. You're the unexpected, disconnected time. Let me drink in, sleep and think in futuristic rhyme. You blow that barat all night through. When you know that barat that makes me cool. Futuristic rhythm, dance till I drop. Never tire, I'm higher, don't you ever stop.
Incidentally, Futuristic Rhythm was written by Dorothy Fields and Jimmy McHugh, and it's from the 1928 musical comedy Hello, Daddy. Same recording session on January 8, 1929, brought forth in a great big way with a vocal by Jim Andrews, who again was Irving Kaufman. Sometime along at this juncture in January of 1929, Benny recorded with another Irving Mills group called the Dixie Daisies. The exact personnel of this is not known, but it is probably the same Pollock group with Jimmy McPartlin, and Jack Teagarden, and Gil Rodin. The name of it is There's Something New About the Old Moon Tonight.
seem half so bad, dear. There's something new about the old moon tonight. Since you whispered, I still care.
The record contractors continued to insist that Benny and his cohorts grind out the saleable short-tailed stomp brand of corn, even though the Pollock Band's reputation for playing legitimate jazz was growing. On January 18, 1929, Benny was recording once again with an Irving Mills group, this one under the label of Jimmy Bracken's Toe Ticklers. Pretty much the same personnel as before, except Glenn Miller is on trombone instead of Jack Teagarden, Jimmy McPartland cornet, Larry Binion tenor, Vic Bradis on the piano, Dick Morgan banjo, Harry Goodman tuba, Ray Baduke drums. Here are two takes of Icky Blues, both of them released. The vocalist is Dick Morgan, the banjo player.
Got those icky turbo legs.
Those are Icky Blues. Play that piano again, there, Jim. Play that piano riff again. Exy purple vision, me purple hoodin, ooh, dog. Purple vision, working, me purple, purple. Every Williams playing to every Williams, standing over the book, and purple, triple vision, me purple, turbo, dog, me round. Moss and purple, wood, rubble. Benny Goodman. Those are Icky Blues. All those Icky Blues. Flat Quivering. All the things keep tripping, the turbo wheel is turfing, both turfing. Return for feel air, peace and row. Better feeling the rapid purple, 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 purple,